Do you know that the vast majority of people, by the time they reach 55, have already abandoned their life's biggest dreams? They believe their prime has passed, their chances have run out, and all that remains is to simply wait for time to pass. But let me tell you something that may sound unusual. Your best years can begin precisely now. It doesn't matter how many frustrations, how much debt, or how many closed doors you've faced. If you understand what I'm about to share, your life can change so drastically that those around you won't believe what they're witnessing. From 55 onward, and particularly after that age, many people confide in me. What if it's too late? What if I ruin what little I have? What if I don't have the energy to start over? I understand, but here's what transforms everything. Attraction is a consequence. The cause is vibration. Vibration is the fundamental law. Attraction is the secondary law. When I understood this, my life changed completely, and yours can too. If you are 55, 60, 70 or older, it's not your age that limits you. It's the frequency you've been living at. Your brain works like a switching center. When you activate certain ideas, you activate certain groups of brain cells. This alters the frequency at which you operate, and by changing the frequency, you change what you begin to attract. Did you feel a knot in your stomach just thinking about money? That feeling is your perception of your current frequency. Change your thoughts, and the feeling changes. Change the feeling, and your reality responds. Let's get to the heart of the matter. What truly directs your outcome after 55 is your paradigm, a program installed in your subconscious that controls your behavior, habits, income, health, and relationships. And the subconscious, unlike the conscious mind, doesn't reject anything. It accepts everything you imprint with emotion, including the stories of "it's too late," "retirement is just for survival," and "money is scarce." Therefore, the first step isn't to work harder, it's to reprogram. Now stop and observe your own life. How many times have you given up trying because you didn't know how? The truth is, you don't need to know how at the beginning. You need to tune into what you desire, the frequency of the result, and hold that image until the path reveals itself. I've been teaching this for decades with a phrase you may have heard me repeat. Harmonize your frequency with your desired reality, and it becomes inevitable. When I held that image, I saw project after project materialize. Want a concrete example from my own life? One that usually generates surprise and a smile. I was sitting in the garden in my 70s and mentally built a studio where I could operate multiple cameras, broadcast to the world, with the team distributed across different states. I held the image, aligned the action with the vibration, and today I record in a soundproof studio with the technician in Phoenix and the creative director in Dallas watching in real time. I visualized that space before it existed. Then I found the right people, the right capital, the right decisions. Attraction, yes. But because the vibration came first, and if you think, but I don't have the same energy as before, allow me a reality check. When I aligned my vibration, I worked with more enthusiasm than many 22-year-olds, and I was nearing 82. Energy isn't age, it's frequency. Now let's apply this to your daily life. Simply, directly, and practically. First, an honest diagnosis of your frequency. Today, not tomorrow. Do 3 check-ins throughout the day, morning, afternoon, evening, and ask yourself, how do I feel when I think about money, health, and time? Describe it with one word. Remember, feeling is the perception of frequency. If the feeling is tightness, fear, guilt, anxiety, you're operating at a frequency that naturally attracts bills, delays, and missed opportunities. The act of perceiving already shifts the frequency. Second, a clear image and an authentic desire. Take a card and write down a C objective, not what results, but what you truly desire at 55 or older. To pay off debts and create a financial reserve for 12 months, to start a business that allows you to work 20 hours a week, to build a health that allows you to play with your grandchildren without pain. Describe it as if it were already accomplished and read it aloud daily, with emotion. Why? Because what you imprint on your subconscious with emotion becomes desire, and desire changes your vibrational state. The new state puts your body into action. Action generates attraction. Attraction changes the result. That's how the sequence moves. Third, replace the how with what frequency does this require? Ask yourself, what kind of person do I need to be in habits, language, environment to harmonize with this reality? At 55 or older, this might mean a 20-minute morning ritual to study basic finances, a 30-minute walk to change your state, and a weekly conversation with someone who already lives what you desire. You don't chase money, you tune into the level of consciousness that manages it well. You become what you think about. Choose your thoughts wisely. Fourth, align micro-actions with the new frequency. Examples that work for most. 1. Renegotiate a debt in a 15-minute call today, not to save, but to prove to yourself that you can modify reality when you change your posture. 2. Sell 3 unused items at home and deposit the money into an account called freedom, not for the amount, but for the mental pattern of abundance in motion. 3. Schedule a conversation with someone 10 years ahead of you in what you desire. Proximity adjusts your social frequency. Notice how these actions modify your feeling in the same week. It's vibration in practice. Fifth, protect your mind from noise. The conscious mind can accept or reject any idea. News reports, pessimistic conversations in the family, headlines of scarcity. You are not obligated to accept any of this. Reject what doesn't serve you and nurture what does. 10 minutes of daily reading on conscious prosperity, visualizing your card, and recording 3 pieces of progress. You're training your radar to notice opportunities that have always been present. Sixth, utilize your higher faculties. Imagination to project, will to persevere, intuition to grasp. At 55 or older, intuition becomes even sharper because you have a lifetime of experience. The right question in the right silence often brings the next correct action. Trust in this. That's how you level up. But what about research? What I've been teaching for decades aligns with what modern psychology indicates. Positive emotions expand the repertoire of action and improve decisions. Consistent focus reconfigures habits. Environment and narrative influence financial behavior. In simple terms, when you change your internal state, you change your choices, and choices change your evidence, which reinforces the new state. It's a virtuous cycle. If a pattern break helps, let's do it now. Close your eyes for 5 seconds and see yourself at 55 or older with the freedom card full, breathing lightly, laughing with relief, opening the statement and murmuring, "That's it." Feel that relief in your body. That feeling is the frequency. That's where you act from. Practical challenge, 55 in 7. For the next 7 days, don't talk about lack, not even jokingly. Every time you think about bills, retirement, or fear, interrupt with 3 steps. 1. A 60-second deep breath. 2. Rereading your C objective aloud. 3. A 5 to 15-minute micro-action related to your objective. Call, study, advertisement, walk. Record 2 lines per day, how I felt before, after. In the end, you won't have luck. You will have evidence that whoever changes the frequency changes the game. Some appreciate famous examples. I remember an actor who wrote himself a check for $10 million years before receiving it, carried it in his wallet, and lived as if the opportunity already existed. That's applied vibration, clear image, emotion, persistence, and aligned action. Exactly what I ask you to do at 55 or older. If you've come this far, you know enough to start today. Hold the image, adjust the frequency, align the action. The rest, people, resources, time, responds to your frequency. It always has. After 55, I see many people making the same mistake, living with modest goals. They are content to desire only a little more security, a slightly better car, a short trip, a promotion that just keeps everything the same. But let me tell you something that might cause discomfort. Modest goals don't awaken the power that exists within you. They are not capable of extracting your best. At most, they keep you in the same place, living in mild comfort but without growth. There's a difference between desiring something and setting a true goal. Desiring a new car, for example, is not a goal. If you've bought cars before, you already know the path. You already know how to do it. This won't challenge you, expand your mind or your consciousness. The true goal is what you don't know how to achieve. It's when you look in the mirror at 55 and decide, I'm going to do something great, even if I have no idea how. That's where the magic begins. I like to call this a C objective, the creative objective. It differs from the A objective, which is something you already know how to achieve, and the B objective, which is something you believe you can achieve with effort. The C objective is different. You have no idea how you'll get there, but you feel deep down that you will. It was that way with the Wright brothers, who decided to fly when nobody believed it was possible. It was that way with Roger Bannister, who broke the 4-minute mile barrier when doctors claimed the human body couldn't endure it. The most impressive part? Shortly after he succeeded, others did too. This proves it wasn't a physical limit that fell, but a mental one. And this is where I want to challenge you. After 55 years, have you noticed how easy it is to start living modestly? How many times have you caught yourself saying, now I just want peace and quiet, or I can't dream so big anymore? That's the trap. Because deep down, what truly gives life meaning is dreaming big. It's pursuing what makes your heart race, what seems impossible to you today. I've seen this happen firsthand. My brother-in-law, for example, was over 50 when the opportunity arose to acquire a small security equipment company. He didn't know if he could do it. He'd worked his whole life for others, was afraid to take risks, afraid of losing his home. But he and my sister mortgaged everything, poured every penny into the business. What seemed like madness at that age transformed into an empire that now supports their children and grandchildren. That would never have happened if they'd settled for modest goals. And that's what I want to show you. After 55, you don't need to downsize your dreams, but to amplify them. And do you know why? Because you carry decades of experience, of mistakes, of successes, of accumulated wisdom. That's fuel that few young people possess. It's precisely now that you can aim for something that seems impossible and surprise even yourself. Think about it. What dream did you put on hold because you thought it's too late? Maybe starting your own business, moving to a new city, learning something entirely new, or even transforming your financial life. These are the true objectives that will draw from you a strength you never knew you still possessed. Science confirms this. When we have a great purpose, our minds activate creative areas, our bodies release energy, and even our health responds better. People with big goals live longer, have a lower risk of depression, and develop more resilience. In other words, dreaming big after 55 is not just an emotional choice, it's a survival and vitality strategy. So I ask you now, looking directly at you, if there were no limits of age, money, or circumstances, what would you truly like to achieve today? Hold on to that answer, because that is your true objective. That's the dream that deserves to come out of the drawer. And don't worry about the how. The how never appears beforehand, it appears along the way. First comes the decision, then the action, and only then do opportunities arise. That's how the law of attraction works. You don't attract what you desire lightly. You attract what you desire with intensity, with emotion, with faith. After 55, don't accept living with modest goals anymore. Give yourself the chance to dream again, to be thrilled by a vision of the future so grand that it even frightens you. because that's exactly what will give you the energy, focus, and vitality for the coming years. And more, when you dare to dream big, you inspire those around you, children, grandchildren, friends, to not give up too soon either. Now it's your turn. Choose something so grand that it makes you smile just thinking about it. Even if it seems absurd, even impossible, that's where true life resides. At 55, many people carry this hidden thought. What if it's too late? What if I don't have time to change everything I dreamed of? I've heard that question more times than I can count. But I want you to reflect. Too late for what? To learn, to create, to prosper, to be happy. The only thing that can be too late is if you decide to give up yourself. I remember when I left the Toronto Fire Department. I wasn't a young man full of energy and without worries. I had debts, uncertainties, and a life that seemed to be going in circles. If I had believed it was too late to change, I probably would have grown old lamenting what I could have done. But I took a step without any guarantee of success, and my life transformed. It wasn't luck, it was choice. Many people believe that after 55, the brain doesn't respond as it did before. But neuroscience proves exactly the opposite. Our brain has what they call plasticity, the ability to create new connections until the last day of life. This means you can learn, reinvent yourself, undertake new ventures, improve your health, and even develop new passions. Whoever says it's not possible anymore is just repeating an old paradigm, a belief that was never true. I know stories of people who only found success after 60 years old. Colonel Sanders, for example, founded the world's most famous chicken chain when he was already in his senior years. Imagine if he had believed it was too late. That's the point. It doesn't matter if you're 55, 65, or 75. Age is never the barrier. The barrier is the belief that it's too late. Stop and think. How many times have you given up trying something just because your mind whispered that thought of, it's too late? How many ideas did you shelve? How many projects did you not start? How many dreams did you abandon? And all of that based only on an assumption. The truth is that time will pass anyway. The question is, will you allow it to pass just surviving, or will you use each new year as an opportunity to start again? And look, I'm not saying that starting over is easy. Starting over requires courage. It requires facing the fear of failure. It requires admitting that perhaps you've spent years believing a lie about yourself. But what's worse, taking a risk and discovering that there's still a world of possibilities, or never taking a risk and living wondering what if. I remember making a decision that seemed insane to everyone around me. People said, "You're not young anymore. Why give up a stable job? Why take a risk?" But I knew, deep inside, that if I stayed in that place, I would grow old, frustrated, full of regrets. And when I looked to the future, I realized that the real risk was not trying. So, I ask you directly, what are you not doing because you believe it's too late? Starting a business, writing a book, traveling to the place you've always dreamed of, changing your financial life. What still pulses within you? Because that desire isn't there by chance. It's a clue. It's a calling. And do you know what happens when you decide to ignore that calling? You begin to wither inside. Studies show that people who believe it's too late develop more anxiety, more depression, and even more physical problems. On the other hand, those who allow themselves to start over, who set new goals even in maturity, live longer, have more energy, and even improve their health. This isn't philosophy, it's science. I can guarantee one thing. The feeling of reinventing yourself after 55 is liberating. It's as if you have a second youth, but this time with something you didn't have before. Experience. You already know what doesn't work. You've learned from your mistakes. You've accumulated lessons. It's like starting a new game, but now with all the cards in your hand. And if doubt still arises, but what if I fail? Remember, failing while trying is infinitely more worthy than failing without ever having tried. True failure is not falling, it's never getting up. Life doesn't reward those who never make mistakes. Life rewards those who insist on continuing. Therefore, at 55, 60, or 70, the right question isn't, is there still time? The right question is, what will I do with the time I have now? That's the choice that changes everything. Because in the end, it's not age that defines your limits, it's your willingness to believe that there's always time to start again. After 55, many people carry a peculiar feeling. They know they could be living better. They know they could be earning more, having better health, enjoying life more. But in practice, they remain trapped in the same pattern of behavior, repeating the same habits, reaping the same results. This happens because there is something invisible commanding their choices: the paradigm. The paradigm is like a program installed in the subconscious that determines how you think, feel, and act. And the most surprising thing is that it remains active, even when you consciously already know you could do differently. You must have felt this. You decide you will take care of your health, you start enthusiastically, but in a short time, you return to old routines. You promise you will organize your finances, but without realizing it, you continue spending more than you should. You want to take a risk on something new, but you always return to the familiar path. This is not a lack of willpower. This is the paradigm acting. Your subconscious does not differentiate the real from the imaginary. It accepts as true everything you feed with emotion and repetition. Therefore, the beliefs you have repeated for decades end up becoming orders that govern your life. I experienced this intensely. When I started to actually make money, I myself didn't understand how it was happening. I grew up believing that I needed to be very intelligent, have a formal education to achieve wealth. I didn't have any of those things. And yet, I started to prosper. Do you know why? Because, without realizing it, I was changing my paradigm. When I immersed myself in my studies, I began feeding my subconscious with different ideas. My body, my vibration, and my actions started reflecting this new programming. Now, consider this. At 55, how many paradigms have already been reinforced within you? How many times have you heard that money is scarce, that there's no time left, that you're too old? How many times have you mentally repeated phrases like, I'm not good with numbers, I'm unlucky, I can't change? Each of these statements became a command, and the life you have today is the exact reflection of the paradigms you've accepted. But here's the good news. A paradigm isn't a sentence, it's just programming, and every program can be updated. You can deliberately select new ideas and fix them in your subconscious mind through repetition and emotion until they replace the old ones. It's like changing the background music playing in your head. I suggest a simple practice. Over the next 7 days, do an exercise. Observe every negative thought that arises about money, prosperity, or personal life. Write it down. Then write a positive affirmation, the exact opposite of the negative belief. For example, if money is scarce comes up, replace it with financial abundance flows to me easily. If I lack time comes to mind, write, there's always time to start over. Read these new phrases aloud with enthusiasm several times a day. It may seem naive, but it's not. This is how you begin reprogramming your subconscious mind. I've seen people transform their lives with this technique. A woman who followed my teachings, over 60 years old, said she could never save money. She deeply believed she would always live in debt. Upon starting to record her thoughts and replacing them with affirmations of wealth, something extraordinary happened. She not only paid off her debts, but in less than 2 years was regularly saving and investing. Her life didn't change because the world changed, but because her perspective changed. Now reflect. What has been directing your life? What do you know you could change, but don't? Because the difference between knowledge and action isn't due to a lack of intelligence or laziness. It's your perspective. Understanding this, you realize that the real obstacle was never the lack of opportunities or age. It was always the mental pattern that insists on repeating the old story. And a warning, if you don't take control of this mental programming, it will continue to control your life. You may live another 10, 20, 30 years, but without changing your way of thinking, the results will remain the same. It's like driving a car with the handbrake on. Therefore, I invite you to no longer be guided by outdated beliefs. Consciously choose the ideas you want to cultivate in your mind. Reinforce them daily with emotion and action. At 55 or older, you possess the maturity to identify the patterns that bind you and finally replace them. It doesn't matter how many decades a paradigm has lasted. It only continues to be effective because you feed it. By ceasing this support and beginning to nurture new ideas, transformation is inevitable. The key is to assume the role of architect of your own mind. And in doing so, regardless of your age, you will begin to live as if you had just discovered a new life. When I think of people 55 or older, I remember how many reach this stage, believing there's no longer any point in seeking something grand. And that's precisely where the most evident proof that the law of attraction has no age is revealed. You just need to understand that everything begins with the clarity of vision. Steve Jobs, for example, didn't know how to create the iPhone before creating it. He simply kept a clear image in his mind. There wasn't a manual, a guide, but the conviction that that idea would become a reality. And it was this clarity that tuned him to the right frequency to attract people, engineers, resources, everything that was necessary to materialize what, until then, seemed impossible. Now observe the other side of the coin, Nikola Tesla, one of humanity's greatest geniuses. He created concepts and inventions that are still the basis of modern technologies. But he died without a fortune, not for lack of talent or ideas, but because his view of money was one of scarcity. He believed that his inventions shouldn't be associated with wealth, and this belief kept him away from financial prosperity. This demonstrates that genius isn't enough. If your vibration regarding money is negative, you don't attract prosperity, no matter how brilliant you are. At 55, this is a powerful lesson. Perhaps you haven't invented something grand like Tesla or transformed industries like Jobs, but within you are dreams that await the same clarity of vision. And if you still believe that it's too late, reflect. How many examples have we seen of people who reach the peak of their lives after 60, 70, or even 80 years old? What defines it isn't age, it's the vibration you maintain. I experienced this myself. When I decided to build my studio, I had no idea how to do it. I simply imagined clearly. Cameras, soundproofing, a team connected in different cities, everything working like a small broadcasting station inside my house. I maintained the vision, I stayed firm, and in a short time I found the right people, the right resources, and what only existed in my mind became reality. The law of attraction works like this. You don't need to know how, only to have a vision so clear and emotionally charged that your subconscious mind begins to move everything around you so that it manifests. The big question, after 55, isn't whether you can still achieve your goals. It's whether you're willing to abandon the beliefs that limit you, as Tesla couldn't, and if you're ready to maintain a clear vision, as Jobs did. Because the truth is simple. You never attract what you want superficially. You attract what you can imagine precisely, feel intensely, and believe firmly. And I ask, what is the vision you have maintained? Is it a vision of limitations, that it's too late, that the opportunities are gone, or is it the vision of a future that, despite seeming impossible, can begin to align itself today, the moment you decide to keep that image within yourself? At 55 or older, many people keep their dreams in a drawer. They tell themselves it's not worth it anymore, that now it's only time to keep what they already have. But what they may not realize is that everything they desire already exists potentially. Science and even theology affirm the same. Nothing is created, nothing is destroyed, everything is transformed. This means that what you dream of is already available in some way, waiting only for you to position yourself at the correct frequency to attract it. I experienced this when I decided to create my studio. In the beginning, there was no project, detailed budget, or formed team. What there was a clear image in my mind. I could see the cameras, the lights, the soundproofing, every detail. I maintained this vision, fueled it with emotion, and gradually the right people appeared. The resources manifested, and what was once just a dream became physical reality. I held the image until it became inevitable. And that's exactly what you need to do. At 55, you have a great advantage, accumulated experience. You've lived enough to understand that problems always arise, but you've also seen that solutions always appear. So why doubt that now would be different? The only reason why you may not have yet achieved what you want is because you gave up too soon on maintaining the vision. Remember, the physical world is only a reflection of what you keep within yourself. When you imagine something clearly, your subconscious registers it as real, and the subconscious doesn't distinguish between what has already happened and what is only in the imagination. That's why great inventors, artists, and entrepreneurs always lived one step ahead. First, they created in the invisible, and only then did they see the result in the visible. You can do this too. But you need to commit to not abandoning the image, even when reason screams, "This is impossible." Many people at this age tell me, "But I've tried before and I couldn't." And I always reply, "You couldn't because you gave up too soon. You abandoned the image when it was still being formed." It's like planting a seed and pulling it out of the ground every day to see if it has already grown. It doesn't work that way. You need to plant, water, and trust that the invisible process is happening. Try something simple. Choose a dream you've kept for years, maybe starting your own business, writing a book, traveling to the place you've always wanted, or even achieving financial independence. Close your eyes and imagine yourself living this now. See the details, feel the emotions as if it were already happening. Repeat this daily. This practice isn't fantasy. It's mental training. This is how you begin to align your vibration. And make no mistake, when you change your vibration, you change everything. New people begin to appear in your life, different ideas emerge, opportunities that before seemed invisible begin to show themselves. The universe responds to the state you put yourself in, and the longer you sustain the image, the stronger this response becomes. I've seen this transform lives. I've met people who, after 60 years old, began to live what they always dreamed of. One of them told me that she had kept for decades the desire to open a small guest house. She always postponed it, always told herself it was too late. But when she decided to visualize it every day, she attracted investors, partners, and soon she was living exactly what she had imagined. Today, she says her only regret is not having believed sooner. So I ask, what dream have you put aside because you thought it was impossible? At 55 or 65, you still have time to make it a reality. The only step you need to take now is to hold on to that vision, don't let it go, and put yourself daily into the vibration of that dream already realized. Because it's at that point that the invisible begins to align and the impossible becomes inevitable. At 55 or older, age isn't a limit. It's an advantage because you've accumulated experience, overcome obstacles, and possess the wisdom to align your vibration with what you truly desire. The most important point is understanding that what you hold in your mind and heart transforms into your reality no matter how much time has passed. And now, To help you continue this growth process and take another step toward becoming 1% better than you are today, watch the next video appearing on your screen. Thank you for being with me, and I hope to see you at our next meeting.